Good Friday morning. My name is Jerry Miller. Welcome to Real Talk. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Network. Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate across Charlottesville, Albemarle County, Central Virginia, and the Commonwealth of Virginia, powered by the Yes Team, a team you can absolutely count on and trust. Guys, 2020 on the horizon. It's a fabulous year. It's going to be the best one yet. We're going to look at it from a real estate standpoint with our good friend, Keith Smith, the Dapper Don himself. Ooh. Good morning, Keith. How are you, my friend?
I am doing well. As I say all the time, if I was doing any better, it'd be illegal.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. Just spent a little bit of time with our grandson, and we're ready to rock and roll for 2020. This show I've been really pumped about for the last, actually we took off last Friday for a couple of days. The gentlemen that are sitting across the table from me here are rock stars. We always bring in rock stars, as everybody knows. But I'm really excited about that. These two gentlemen are the current president of CAAR and 2021's incoming president, and we're going to talk about their visions and goals for 2020 and what they see happen in the real estate. So I'm going to jump out of the way. I'm going to let you introduce them, and I'll jot down a few notes.
I love it. Thank you for setting this up. Quinton, I believe this is your third rodeo on Real Talk. Second or third?
Second, I think.
Okay, second rodeo. This man's an old pro. He's got this down. Tom's first rodeo.
My very first. I'm shaking in my boots over here.
On Real Talk. Well, why don't we do this, Tom? Introduce yourself to the viewing public. What makes you tick, your passions, your hobbies, and your interests.
Gotcha. Jerry, I started in real estate in 2009. Great year to get going. Didn't know any better, how bad things really were. But I'm still here. And you learn stuff along the way, and it's just persistence. As I get further along with this, I have had lots of hobbies throughout my life, but this one seems to be a passion that's taken hold and taken on more and more of my time and my interest, and I just love it.
Love it. Quinton, why don't you reintroduce yourself? This setting and this stage, perfect for your skill set and personality.
Let's see, I'm the broker-owner of Keller Williams Alliance and president-elect for 2021, following in Tom's footsteps.
Yes.
Got into real estate sort of on a lark, and then discovered that there's a lot of things I really like about it, and am really motivated to raise the level of professionalism. It's a great industry. It has a lot of really qualified people and a lot of layers in that. Love to raise that bar, see it do better for folks out in the community.
So for preparation for today, driving in, I kind of popped into my head, there's the three basics, right? Food, clothing, and shelter. And what we do, what everybody at this table does for a living, is we help one of the most basic needs that folks have. So to me, I take it, I know the gentleman across the table from me take what we do extremely seriously. We were having a cup of coffee. I looked over to Tom, and I've known Tom for quite some time. I did not realize you're an MIT graduate. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh gosh, Keith, that's ancient history.
Well, that's saying something.
Yeah.
So your background is more.
My background's a little different because I didn't come up in real estate. This is call it a, late in life career. I started at the age of 50. MIT. The degree was electrical engineering, which at that time. I'd say about 26% of the student body was electrical engineering and computer science. So we're talking 81. The PC had not been invented yet. It was coming along in a few years. But there was a lot of stuff being done in the programming world. And I got a job locally with what was Sperry Marine at the time. It's now Northrop Grumman. And did that for about 17 years. And then got involved in a little bit of real estate, dabbling here, investments, that sort of thing. Moved out of the area, realized my mistake somewhere around 2007, 2008, and said I'm going to come back. Very glad I did. I can't say enough about Charlottesville, the greater Charlottesville area. I love living here, and I like helping people move here.
And Quinton, you have a technical background. You're a programmer of some sort, are you not?
No. No, although computers were just coming out when I was in high school, and so we got the ever-amazing Commodore 64s.
So I'm going to stop you right there. Everybody here, when we were in high school,
right.
This was not so much here.
Yeah.
Everybody with a little bit of gray in their hair.
No, I was in real estate in California way back in time before the market crashed, and then went on to become a nurse practitioner. Did that for about 20-some years. and then left that once the kids were all grown and returned to real estate.
So two big pivots, right?
Yes.
You know, and I guess I want to explore a little bit about the rationale about the pivot, or what kind of spurred that along, right? MIT, nurse practitioner.
Right.
How did we get from those two to real estate?
Into
And
real
then,
estate.
because we all sit on the same board and we know each other for a long time, you guys put a ton of time and effort in to get to the position that you're in now. So let's talk a little bit about that and maybe what your vision is for 2020. A lot to unpack there.
Okay.
But let's probably start with how did we make that transition?
Try not to ramble too much. In engineering, I started out, you're in the corporate world. You transition from college to work, and realized that if I wanted to go up the ladder in that, I'd be jumping from company to company from time to time, and you just work your way up. My wife and I liked the area, didn't like the idea of moving, hopping around and that sort of thing. She jokes, if we hadn't gotten married, I'd probably have ended up in either Colorado or California or who knows where at this point. But, when you decide things, the root of decide is death, side, kind of thing. So the decision was to stay here. And, And as I got older, I was less and less enamored of the corporate world. Did a few other things in between between engineering and real estate. But when I found this, it was just like, okay, really do wish I had started this sooner. I really do have a passion for this.
You know why? And as someone who looks for that quality in others, I think you both embody the gift of human connection. You like interacting with people.
Absolutely.
You guys get
Absolutely.
energized being around people, helping people, finding common ground, and figuring out solutions to improve their quality of lives. Throw that to you, Quinton.
Well, regardless of which career we're talking about, I was never the smartest person in the room. But,
I doubt that.
but whether it's healthcare or we're talking about real estate transactions, you get an opportunity to sit with people at very important moments in their life where things feel uncertain, where they're out of their depth by and large, most people, and help guide them. And, we used to tell people all the time, we take them back into the OR for surgery, and you're giving them the list of everything that could go wrong. And then at the end, and you say, but I brought everybody back out, and you're going to be okay.
Sure.
And real estate is a lot of the same things. A lot of how people get forced into real estate transactions are in really difficult parts of their life. And it's hard to have enough brain space to contemplate everything that's going on with the transaction while dealing with what could be a death in the family, divorce. But you get to sit with people at really critical junctions of their life and help it be better and let them walk away better informed, feeling more in control. And that's been a common theme, whichever profession you talk about.
Great answer.
Good
one.
Like I said,
Yeah.
rock stars. I totally get the smartest person in the room. I'm there myself. But what talent that you have possess, and Tom also, is you seek out the room with a bunch of smart people in it, right? That's a skill some folks don't want to do, and I appreciate what you do. You always seek out the room with the smartest folks in it. So we're the president for CAAR, Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors. Congratulations.
Yeah,
by the way.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Or condolences, depending on how one
I think I'll
looks.
join a club and beat myself with it.
There you go. As one who has a volaholic problem.
That was fun.
Right, volaholic, yeah,
A
exactly.
volaholic problem, I understand that.
Yeah.
This is a big thing. We have 1,300 realtors. You're at the top of that. It took a bit of a path to get there. For those who don't know, there's a bunch of years of hard work at committee levels to kind of raise up to that point. So, hey man, tell me what your vision is for us.
Well, it's to get here. It's if you're at the top, you must also be a servant. True. And I do like serving. I do like contributing. So if I don't have an opportunity to do that, or I can't figure out how I can, you're not going to see me, in the endeavor. Again, as I said, I've got a lot of passion for this, and what's great about it, I've been involved in some other professional associations or trade groups in the past, and you find people, the ones who get involved are the ones who really care about it.
Sure.
So as Quinton mentioned, professionalism is a big thing. Hand in hand with that is education. So that helps, one helps the other. If you want to be professional, you're going to get yourself educated to learn more. I mean, we're the exterior viewpoint, and I'm going to paraphrase Quinton here a little bit, but we're the exterior viewpoint to help people improve conditions in their lives, and shelter is huge. I mean, everybody needs a roof over their head, okay? So that's what we work on, and the better we can do that. I mean, sometimes I feel like I get more out of the transactions than the people do. In other words, if you can give, if you can help, then there's a tremendous amount of satisfaction in that, and we just want to do more. So as an association, when I got involved with this, it was, I saw that commitment. I'm kind of a cheerleader for CAAR. I think,
As you should be.
as I should be, I guess, but I just feel this. A little bit of a proprietary attitude, but I think we're the best association in the state.
Well,
Okay.
I believe we've won enough awards to prove that, too.
We have won a lot of awards, okay? But the important thing is not so much the awards, but what leads to them. In other words, what do we do? So there's always room for improvement. Again, that's why my emphasis this year is on professionalism. We've got some programs designed for that. Education, we're increasing the offerings, and we're going to be having them at the Hillsdale Conference Center at the CAAR building. So we have our standing, committees and master groups and project teams and so on and so forth. There's a pretty full slate of things to do, but the whole idea is I'm going to be here for this year, then I move on, Quinton takes over. I want to give him the association.
Well, but it's
Yeah.
that's a
but
very,
it's a continuity. It's
that's
a
a very
continuity.
important word.
Yeah.
Right, and that was what impressed me the most about CAAR when I was fortunate enough to get on the board.
Yeah.
There's this oh boy, you say
Continuity.
There you go. That's a
There you
fancy word.
Right.
But I call it institutional memory.
Yeah.
Right. So that
Yeah.
we can move along. So Quinton, you're taking over a year from now, right?
So it would seem.
So it would seem.
He better.
With any, right?
So it would seem, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your visions here for CAAR?
We talk a lot about professionalism, and that can be a tough topic because there's a high degree of competitiveness between agents and brokerages anywhere you go. It's a competitive business. It should be. That makes us strive to be better. My youngest daughter, when she was in grade school, we tried to put her in baseball and volleyball and all these team sports, and every time she did something wrong, she was crushed because she felt like she let everybody down. And so we moved her to swimming because she could swim before she could walk, and the way she dealt with it was she was always in competition with herself, striving to do better, to make a better score, and she got accepted into the Junior Olympics.
Nice.
This is CAAR's position. I don't need to worry when we're sitting in the middle of the association about which brokerage does what team is doing better, is this agent this and that. This is swimming. I want you to know what you did last month and be better. I want to bring that out for each of our agents because we make a separation between a real estate agent and a realtor because we have a certain set of standards with how we work. We have a code of ethics. But within realtor, there's also layers. And we want to provide opportunities and motivations for everybody to know what was my time last time I was in the pool and what can I do to do better.
Ooh,
So I think
I like that analogy.
Well, as the father of a former D1 swimmer, female swimmer, I get it. But I'm not going to allow you to ever say that you're not the smartest person in the room because that was probably one of the smartest answers I've ever heard.
Getting
So
some props today on this show, aren't you, Quinton?
I'm not the
You're going to
smartest
owe this
person
fella
there.
big time.
you didn't know there was $100 slid on the table earlier.
I was awake at 4 a.m. What am I going to say? What am I going to say?
We have a number of your colleagues watching right now. Our friend Rachel Burns watching the program. Christopher Eagle, hello. Thank you kindly for joining us. Michael Guthrie watching the program as we speak. 5 different firms watching. Sharon Outen-Williams, Quinton, you are looking very good, my friend. Daniel McDougall says, great stuff, guys. Christopher Eagle says, hello. We'll take a moment to thank one of our sponsors. We're going to give some love to Mike Bittrick, a First Heritage Mortgage Keith.
We love Mike to death. If you need a loan taken care of, he'll make magic happen, particularly in the new construction environment. He's excels at that. So give him a shout out, and you won't go wrong.
Joseph Brummett giving you some love right now. Teresa Poole as well.
Right.
You know what I'd like to do? The businessman in here.
Yeah, I still wanted to stay relational, but
Right,
you can go there if you want.
You take the lead here.
I'm going to give a shout out to Wade.
Okay.
Wade Brummett. We went to high school, and we're doing some business right now. I want to commend him specifically. He was one of these small builders that went out of business in 2007, 2008. And part of the reason that new builds, those numbers are not where they need to be is the small builders have not come back. Wade is one who is coming back. And I just want to give him a shout out and a high commendation for doing that, because it's, brother, they're needed.
Well said.
Well, you're starting to see some comebacks.
Yes.
We got Dominion Custom Homes.
John Kerber.
John Kerber is coming back. A couple other smaller
Yes.
guys. Chris Bramante with Brent Bramante Homes is coming back, so that's great news. We talk about this on the show all the time, and that's the reason why I'm always excited about having guys like you or agents of your quality and brokers of your quality across. You guys get it. We're in the relationship business. We're not in buying and selling and whatever it is. We're in building relationships and making magic happen to meet that one of those three basics in life, which is the thing. So you before we get on to the market, popped into my head, Hillsdale Conference Center.
Yes.
If I said that right. You know, that's a big step for us as an organization. Maybe we want to give a bit of a shout out for that.
Well, we were 4 years developing that from the time whoever popped the first idea. I'm not going to name names because I'll probably get it wrong, but again, this is volunteers within the association. And 4 years developing that. Grand opening was last summer. I think we had that in August, didn't we, Quinton?
Sounds right.
And we've had a number of CAAR activities there. We're doing classrooms there for a number of things. And we've also opened it up to the community. We have a director for the facility, and her sole job is to work with the community. You can do everything from rent a room with a small table with 6 chairs around it, all the way up to we've got a couple of boardrooms. We have a classroom that'll hold somewhere between 50 and 80 people, depending on how it's configured. And then we have our ballroom, which will hold 180 people. And we've gotten a lot of groups. Right now we've got one church that's using it on Sunday, got another one that's looking at it very closely, and then other groups during the week, in the evenings. Beth Heider is taking care of that. And then we have a new director of education. That would be David Shockley.
There you go. Know David well.
Yes. David was with CAAR some years ago. I can't remember how far back, 12, I think. And he's just come back on board as our director.
A little thing about David, he's one heck of a chocolatier.
I have heard that.
And that is one of my weaknesses in life. So you may have mentioned a name, I may have missed it. Who's managing this for us?
For outside groups, Beth Heider.
Okay.
She has extensive background. She was with Glenmore Country Club.
Okay.
But she was doing the same sort of job there.
So I've been trying to get Beth on the show, so maybe a little bit of pressure, Mr. President.
I would very much, yeah. She's very engaging, very
Just
gregarious.
saying, that's all.
Right, I think she would be good for the show.
I'm trying to get her and Abby together. That's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Abby, we just hired. We had a lot of changes last year, and I want to say they're all, all good changes. We have a new CEO, that's Abby Tamman. Ann Gardner took a position in, was it South Carolina?
Sounds right.
North Carolina.
No,
Cape Fear.
North Carolina.
Yeah, North Carolina. Okay. But we had to scramble. We had to put together a search committee, and we promoted from within. It's just how it worked out. We had people from, all over the U.S. and Canada who applied for the position. So we have Abby in there, and then the old staff, the people who were there before, have all stayed. So we're real happy about that. The new conference center.
Some big things coming on.
Big things, yeah. And it gives us the opportunity to provide the services. And again, it's with this vision of increasing education and professionalism. One thing that CAAR's really been good at, which I love, one of the things that makes it near and dear to my heart is, the members, the volunteers are involved in the community, whether it's, it's all kinds of things. I don't know how long the list is, Keith. 30 groups or better.
Yeah.
I mean, we have people do stuff with Habitat for Humanity, Central Virginia Land Trust.
I did a keynote there for
Did you?
Tim Carson
Yes.
and Jeff Gaffney of Real Estate 3 and their agents.
Right.
On digital, social, and mobile marketing. And I was taken aback
Uh-huh.
with the level of quality
Right.
and the technology and the standards
Yes.
of the facility.
Right.
It was comfortable. It was set up for success.
Good.
And I think this is an important part of there's a lot of ways the association operates to support us. As you move forward in time, whether you're a real estate broker or you're doing anything that does not involve retail, more brick and mortar and more square footage does not help you. People don't have to show up to your office to do the transactions, to get the information, and to meet with you. And so it's becoming a detriment. And what we find when we look across the city is that there's very few mid-sized places to meet. There's small places, there's large places, and the large places usually have a requirement for catering. And there was this niche where we as an association could help meet the needs of brokerages, support our community, and have an opportunity to have spaces that were more flexible and in that mid-range.
You have a comment that fits what you just said from Donna Patton. It's a phenomenal place. The Women's Council of Blue Ridge just had their holiday soiree there with the band.
Right.
It's set to meet that need and have that niche. It's very competitively priced and really fits nicely into one of the strategic plan initiatives in terms of supporting our members and interacting with the community. One of the other really large things the association does, it provides a place for us individually and as brokers and affiliates that work with us to come together to do things in and for the community that would be hard to do meaningfully by ourselves. And you see that expressed in, Angel Tree for the Salvation Army, support of AHIP to help keep people in the homes that they would not otherwise be able to stay in. Things that really show the association's members' commitment to the community in which they live and the people they serve, that there's an added layer to it. The association provides that way for us to do that and to come together and really make an impact.
So one of the tenets of this show that I'm trying to get out is the value proposition for a real estate agent or a realtor. What do we bring to the table? But more importantly, if you take a look at any one of the nonprofit boards or any of the committees or anything out there giving back, you will see a bunch of realtors
Absolutely.
on these boards and all that stuff. And we as an industry just are constantly giving back because we recognize it. We recognize at least we do, Yonna and I do. We're just blessed to be able to do this for a living and help
Absolutely.
folks.
Yes.
And it means the world to my wife and I to give back. And we joke around about my volaholic problem, but I've been blessed with the ability to do this and give back. So one of the key things always about this show is, what is the value proposition of a realtor? What is the value proposition of real estate? And how can this help everybody raise the all tide, tide rises all boats, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Two entrepreneurs that are giving back, Patrick and Jason at Marie Beth.
oh yeah, sure.
Sponsors of our show.
Sponsor the show, and I just love those guys to death. Any opportunity that I can hug him. There's a few guys that just give a really great hug. He is one of them. I have to take a couple extra breaths afterwards.
Right.
But it's funny. You guys were talking about the lack of brick and mortar, and my wife and I are setting up our 2020 budgets and all our business stuff. And my wife looked at what I spend in Marie Beth a month. And I've been pushing her. I say, I need a little office for myself. She goes, no, you don't. It's right there.
There you go.
It exists already.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Caroline Foreman Betts, two highly accomplished and respected gentlemen right there. G.R. Falls is watching the program, good friend of the show. He says you're looking sharp, Quinton. Judy Savage Jones, both these guys are fantastic. Ashley Journey watching the program, 8 real estate firms watching the show as we speak. Keith Smith.
I think
This is
so.
really intriguing.
It
to me
is.
right
Yeah,
here.
I've been.
How to stay out of the way.
I've been.
This
bundling-
appeals to me.
Yeah. So let's talk about economic outlook and housing market outlook for 2020. at a general note, I'm very excited that the National Association of Realtors and Virginia Realtors, they're starting to look forward now.
Right.
Right? And that, I think, is important. It's great to look in the rearview mirror and see what has happened behind us to formulate what we're doing forward. But this is the first year, and gentlemen, you may correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first year that these organizations are looking forward, and I believe CAAR is also taking this approach going forward. I have some very specific opinions about the market, but you guys are also pros, so maybe Quinton, we'll start with you if you don't mind. What you are seeing happening in 2020, and do you think the R word may come up anytime soon?
Not until we are through with an election year.
Agreed.
Election years pump enormous amounts of money into the economy. They create jobs. They support manufacturing and retail in a way that will help sort of buffer us against some of the other stuff. We've had a lot of good economic indications that are helping push back against some of the things that are making homeownership hard. So I think what you're seeing is still the arm wrestling match of things trying to make it bad and things trying to make it good, but those opposing forces still remain pretty equal. I think as I've watched real estate over the last 3 years, I'm seeing that we're selling more listings, even though we're signing fewer agreements to sell listings. And so whereas 5 years ago you might have sold 80 out of 100, 3 years ago you were selling 89 out of 100, and last year we sold 96 out of 100. But the total number of listings we're putting on are still coming down. We're still probably going to end up talking about that missing middle before this show is over, and I think that's an important feature. But by and large for next year, I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. Again, it depends on why you're buying the house. I think if you need a place to live, that's a different conversation from if you're managing commercial properties and it's part of a portfolio.
Good answer right there. You talk about some of those indicators that are having that arm wrestling match. Lack of supply, interest rates staying low. I mean, those are on either side of the fence right there. Talk to us about some of those other indicators. I love learning.
So you have a lack of supply, and some of that depends on what price range you look at, but let's just say you have a lack of supply, and that would tend to push prices up. You have interest rates low, which tends to increase buying power, but you also have some other things going on in terms of inability to have a down payment. A lot of our first-time home buyers and
Student
people that
debt.
are looking to move in are so saddled with debt that the opportunity to build up 20% down payment is not there. If you adjust wages for inflation, March of last year, the average hourly wage, when you take out managerial kind of stuff, was the same value as 1975. So you sort of had this dip, a little bit of a climb, a big dip, and now we've sort of reached some sort of equilibrium with that. Interest rates are low, but people can't put down 20%. So they're putting down 3 and 3.5%. So they're paying a lot more interest for the same amount of house, and your tax deduction is capped now at 10 grand. So you could get a lower payment paying less interest with a better deduction 10 years ago than you could today, and they're cash poor. And so I think you're seeing a lot of these pressures pushing towards the middle. We also buy houses that are 40% bigger than we did 10 years ago. So you start talking about price per square footage going up, you add 40% onto that, and you end up with these new builds that are starting out in the low 400s. But if you look at our average income, we need something that's like 275. So I'm excited that developers are coming back into the market, and we're seeing a lot more of new home starts. I think the longer we go on with this inventory crunch, the bigger decision is not going to be do we build, it's going to be what do we build, and how do we balance that out.
That was a great answer.
That's a great segue into the missing middle, but we'll jump into that a little bit later on that, because as you know, I'm pretty passionate about that subject.
Yeah.
Mr. President, what do you think?
Well, I'm reminded of an example. This was from a year ago when we were looking at the numbers end of 2018. This is the quarterly market, figures end of 2018, early 2019. And things, it looked like maybe they had peaked and were starting on the downhill side a little bit. Sometimes you get, though, if you come up here, the market will kind of bump along like this because you can't keep going up forever. And it doesn't mean just because you've crested that you're going to crash, because we've had a pretty steady, what I call a normal run up, as conditions have gotten better. But anyway, with all that preamble, we were looking at the numbers on a county-by-county basis, and everybody was down except for Greene County. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to speak to Quinton's comment about hitting the right price point, because what pushed Greene County's numbers up was Oxford Hills, which was a Ryan development.
Holmes.
Yeah. Ryan Holmes, yeah. Ryan Holmes, right there. And I don't remember the exact numbers, but anyway, Greene was up by, I don't know if it was 9% or 13% for the, year over year for the quarter. But it was the only one that was showing that. And they were in that, middle price point where, especially for Greene County, if people can't, they work in Charlottesville or, close in to the city, but they can't afford to live that close. I mean, the old saw about this area is the further out you go, the more affordable it is. So you trade off commute time with home price. But they hit it just right. I know they do their research, but it was in that 200 to 300 range.
Sure.
And, that's, I think there's more opportunity for that.
So I desperately want to dive into this missing middle end of it, but I do want to jump in a little bit on the market and the R word. And if Neil is still watching, he'll probably correct me if I'm wrong. But I did a little bit of research. There's never been a recession, there I said it,
Okay.
when there was full employment. And full employment, depending on who you talk to, is between 5 and 6%. And, what are we at here? Less than 3% now?
2.4, I think.
Yeah, 2
Yeah.
and change.
Yeah.
2 and change.
2.3, 2.4.
Right. So, I mean, and plus, of course, the definition of recession is 2 consecutive quarters. We haven't hit one. So
Right.
all the conditions, and if you just look at what Virginia Realtors have put out, right, they're projecting in 2020 total jobs going from 4.032 to 4.08 million.
Right.
Existing home sales, they're projecting to go up from 125,000 to 129,000. They're projecting the median price going up to 308 from 295. New housing starts going up by a few thousand a year, and the mortgage rate really only going up about a quarter point. And if you sit down and talk to economists, there's there's lies.
Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah. White lies,
There you
damn lies,
go.
and statistics.
There you go.
Thank you, gentlemen, for
Right.
keeping me on track. So,
This is a podcast. We're allowed to swear.
Oh, yeah. You do it all the time.
Yeah. I've been given a limit.
You like to swear? Me too.
Literally at lunch, at breakfast on the way over. Okay, guys, this is
Yes.
the number you're allowed, and that's where it stops.
Not to detract.
But
Yeah.
But I'm rather passionate about this. We're going to want to go back to this missing middle. Everybody that watches the show, and I know you gentlemen know this, I sit on a bunch of boards and commissions revolving around affordable housing and
Right.
and the housing market. And, missing middle is not necessarily a dollar amount, though it does relate to dollars. It's product type, right? So if you
Define that if you can, Keith.
Yeah,
You say
so-
missing middle. Because I've got my definition for it.
Yeah, and like any definition or
Yeah.
statistics, right? Everybody's got their own opinions
Sure,
and so forth and so
sure.
on. But the one that seems to be gravitating up is the missing middle is more of a product type, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, I was out in Oregon. I was out in Washington State. They both adopted, it's a horrible name. They call it RIP, Residential Infill Project or
That's a terrible
Thank you.
mnemonic.
It's a horrible name.
Acronym, yeah.
Oh, it's horrible.
right up
But
there
what
with
they
DOA.
do, the vision here is to take the SFD, single-family detached lots, which most jurisdictions, Charlottesville included.
Ours is 52, 53% in the city of Charlottesville.
I was going to say 57, but yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
R1.
R1S or R1.
Yeah.
So what they do is they take these SFD, single-family detaches, and they turn them into duplexes. They add, you can put auxiliary dwelling units in it. You can turn them into quads. I think you can go up to a maximum of 4.
Okay.
And so I'm directly involved with helping guys out or jurisdictions and folks in the housing space on how to navigate this, because what has happened is the state level, which we are as a state, there's a bill being floated up through the state to actually amend and or remove single-family housing, single-family detached zoning. I don't know if anybody's aware of that, but there's a...
It's big time.
You're
Sally
correct.
Hudson and Company.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And then a couple of, and it's gaining a little bit of bipartisanship
That's right.
on it, going uphill. So I'm keeping a close eye on that. But where the struggle happened, and so the state has adopted this out in Oregon and Washington, and where I'm helping them navigate, the difference between zoning and building codes are conflicting now, right? So I don't want to get too wonky on this, but if you take a single-family detached house and carve it up into 4 residential units, you now need to do 2-hour separation, fire separation, which is, okay, the state has said you can do this, right? And then,
this group over here is going to give you this whole nother set of conditions that you have to meet to do
Which
it.
keeps it from happening.
That's
That's
exactly
the red tape.
Well, that's the red tape.
Yeah.
But the good news, for whatever it's worth, is they recognize the problem. They're working through it. So these are going to be really good templates for around the country to do this. Again, I'm, as you can tell, I'm uber passionate about it.
Right.
But that is a potential, assuming we can get through some of the challenges of fixing the missing middle. Now, of course, if you can increase, in my personal opinion, if you can increase density, then that drives price down because more product is more supply is up.
Sure.
In theory, of course. So anyway, we'll stay posted. I'm working on it. You're smiling, so I don't know if you share the same.
He hit it really well with
Yeah.
your analysis about 5 or 10 minutes ago.
I'm interested to see where this goes. I've been watching my home state of California as states and cities sue one another over very similar legislation.
Sure.
And we have many people that will sit and say, we need more density in our neighborhoods so long as it's not next to my house.
Yeah.
And we've talked not too long ago about how there's no more lots available inside the city limits. So there's a lot of competing things that go on in there, and until the political will exists to make all those things come together, we're just going to keep having this conversation over and over and over. When you look at the statistics, we had fewer homes go up for sale in 2019 than we did in 2018. We sold a greater percentage of them. One out of, roughly speaking, these are not exact maths, roughly 1 out of 4 of those was in the 200 to 300 grand range.
1 out of 4?
1 out of 4. Roughly 1 out of 5 was in the 100 to 200 grand range. And I don't believe that's happening because this is a new focus for investors, or that's all people can afford. I think there's a need for it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know the numbers on new development that we've seen in and around the city, but I would wager the vast majority of them are not in that bracket.
No, 400 plus.
Well, you can't.
So, and the
You're saying margin.
when we talk about percentage of sales by price bracket, 100 grand price brackets, the only brackets to go down in terms of percentage of the overall sales last year to the year before is the 200 grand and down.
I'm never going to let you say you're not smart again.
Yeah,
So-
you should explain it well.
So there's a couple, I don't know exactly how this all works out, but there's a couple of things we can deduce from that. And one is that we're not building that inventory.
Yeah.
We know for sure that we're not building that inventory, or if we are, it's very limited. We also know that, at least anecdotally, doing listings, a lot of why we're selling a smaller percentage in that price range is the same homes that sold for that price in 2018 now got pushed into the next bracket. And so we have to figure out ways to address some of these things. Density is going to be one of the big ways to address it.
Well,
And
it creates a bunch of other problems too, and we talk about this on the show all the time. So I'm also passionate about adding transportation into that component, right?
well, you were talking about, there's always two things that affect poverty. Richmond, several years ago, there was a friend of mine, really smart lady, got hired by the city of Richmond to develop the fast bus system. Because what you end up with affecting poverty is if you can't change the real estate prices so people can live closer to the better jobs, then you have to provide transit,
Better transportation.
better
Reliable.
transportation that
Right.
is more effective. Because to get on a bus to go 5 miles is 45 minutes. And so you need this fast tracking. You have to do one or the other if you're going to create upward mobility for groups in these areas.
If you recently have not done it, take an opportunity to drive down a Broad Street in Richmond and see this in action. It's pretty neat what they've done.
So I'm very interested in those sorts of things. We really felt it in California, which is a huge deal because owning transportation personally that's reliable is expensive.
I believe, and I think you're going to start seeing this, and I believe it's 14th Street in Manhattan is about ready to get shut down to pedestrian only.
Right, cars. Yeah.
Correct.
Because cyclists are at an all-time high in New York City.
Correct.
Being hit by cars.
That's
and
exactly
the
right.
fatalities are up in
That's
2019.
exactly right, yeah. Well, you just came back from being in the city for a few days.
Yeah.
And I just came back from that north. And that's all they're talking about is the number of pedestrians being hit, bicyclists being hit. But what they're going to do on 14th Street, is they're going to do this fast bus concept, right? They're going to leave it to, and you're seeing other cities do it. But it's interesting, there was an article I read in CNN. We're talked about quite often, the city of Charlottesville, about this, right? Because we were far ahead of most jurisdictions by turning a street into a pedestrian mall, which is, of course, is right behind
Downtown
us,
mall.
Downtown
Right.
mall. So we're cutting edge typically around here. So I look for us to continue along those lines, but
Let me throw this to Tom.
Sure.
And we got to give some, let's give the spotlight to Mac Weems and State Farm.
yeah, a new sponsor for us. She was on the show a couple of weeks ago. We're excited about having her. Her team is just unbelievable, and she comes from a pretty great background. And give her a shout; she'll help you out.
Mac Weems, State Farm, absolutely.
There
The
you
question
go.
I'm going to throw to you,
All right.
and you've touched on this here. So millennial,
Yes.
okay, myself. My friends in the home buying game now. My friends pursued, a lot of them, higher education, masters,
Right.
saddled with student debt.
Right.
I'm talking 6 figures plus. Debt that they're concerned that they're going to be paying off well into their 50s and 60s.
Right.
Okay, so they're looking for, in Charlottesville and Albemarle County, and you hit this, homes that are in the upper 2s, early 3s. They cannot find these homes. Now, I think about the builders and the developers. Unless you're a mass market, mass produced developer like Ryan Homes, how can a medium and lower sized guy build a home in the high 2s, early 3s, and stay in business, keep the lights on? There's no margin there. So where are these homes going to come from in Charlottesville and Albemarle County at those price points to solve this dilemma?
Excellent question. Very, very good question. It's pressures of the market, and people will come up with solutions, like what Keith was talking about out in Oregon and Washington State, and we may see here. I can tell you this, whenever any of us list a townhome in Charlottesville or nearby,
It goes like that.
boom, they're
Yeah.
gone. Yeah. So it's that sort of thing. If people have to be at that price point, they have to be looking at what is available there. And unfortunately, right now, there's not a lot. I'm looking at this chart, which we've gotten into a little bit and may get into some more here.
And Judah, put that on screen for the viewers.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, the
Please, sir.
2019 to 2020, housing market outlook. But I'm looking at, they're predicting prices going up another 4.6%. Now, this is on top of, guys, we've seen this every quarter. The median price has been going up.
Yeah.
And how long can that happen? Okay? So Quinton's talking about the missing middle and how we're pushing that out. And, he and I were talking this morning before we came over here, just myself looking at, because I sell all over the place, and different price points and all that. And he's right. I had far fewer below 200,000 this past year than I've ever had. And I think this is it. This is not just new homes being built at that high end there, but it's just all of them being pushed up because the demand is there. So I wish I had a good answer for, the millennials, the first-time home buyers, people are there. I'll just give you a little bit of a contrast here. You did mention, where I went to school, and at the time it was It was the most expensive institute of higher learning at the time, and I had student debt, and it was one of those, once I got out, it was, I'm not going to say the dollar figure, but took 10 years to pay off at $100 a month. That was livable. I could deal with that, and it's just like every month you write the check.
It's changed.
Oh, yes, it has changed. I mean, when you talk about, you know...
You're talking about a car or mortgage payment.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, 6 figures, except for a few vehicles. Yeah, you're beyond the cost of a car. And, yeah, when I got out, it wasn't at that. It just wasn't there. So, yeah, the economic conditions have changed over time. So, like Quinton said earlier, you've got market factors that tend to increase the numbers, and then you've got a lot of barriers here to that. We would like to come up with more and more solutions for people looking to get into, first-time home buying.
And I hear a lot of what you're saying about margins for developers. But as somebody that has sold some of these condos that were built in the 70s and the 80s, they're horrible.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know about developing. It's not my thing, so I'm speaking out of school a little bit here. But I feel like there has to be a way to find somebody with the impetus that can create this model that will create this housing that will then sell.
It seems to be Ryan Homes.
When Junction...
So this is my world,
well,
right?
that's one
and this is
model
not my
for sure.
world.
Yeah.
But what I do see when we talk about forecasting into 2020, we're talking about adding 45,000 jobs in the state of Virginia and only 35,000 new housing starts.
Yeah.
6,000 jobs coming to UVA in the next couple years.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
going to put some pressure on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So until we find this piece of the puzzle that sits in the middle, we're going to keep compounding our problem.
So as one who's a solution-based kind of person, I try to look at solutions, and you come from the corporate background, right? When you had to bring an issue to some of your bosses, you didn't bring an issue, you brought 3 solutions.
Yes.
Right?
Otherwise, your head would be on the floor over here.
You would not have a job,
Right.
All that stuff. So this is great conversation, but just to talk a little bit about the developer side of it, it's kind of a vicious cycle. So it's a inventory problem, right? So if the developer can't purchase land at a reasonable price, the development costs are what they are. The restrictions are what they are. It drives the lot price up, which therefore it drives the house sale price up, and it's just a vicious cycle.
Right.
So one of the reasons why I'm in favor, and I'm going to use this word very intently, smart, well thought out changes to our zoning ordinances is to try to increase that density. The reputable guys out there or gals out there in the market really want to do the right thing. But you can't bring in increased density without looking at this transportation. We talked about this in Richmond and, in Seattle and Portland, they have light rail. Of course, we don't have millions of people to afford that, but we could probably create a good bus system. And Jaunt does a great job. Brad, who runs, I've forgotten Brad's last name. He used to be Albemarle County.
Sheffield.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. He's a rock star on this. And if folks have been watching closely, you've been seeing some new buses out there called Connect buses. And what they're doing is they're bringing people from places like Zion's Crossroads, places like Waynesboro.
Right.
And so they're really trying to do this, but I'll get off my soapbox here for a minute, but we can talk about increasing density, we can talk about all that kind of great stuff, but without concurrently running how we're going to get effective transportation around, it's going to be a hard one-sided conversation.
Yeah.
That's
all
my
these
soapbox.
factors are definitely interrelated.
Yeah, sure.
You can't.
Well, throw in the Dillon Rule state aspect and the fact that we have very little autonomy at the local level to change upzoning.
Right.
It's got to come from Richmond for that to happen.
Well, that's why what we just
With
talked
Sally.
about. That's why this is so important.
That's right.
It is. It's gaining traction in the conversation. But as my experience has been in Oregon and Washington, we need to make sure folks like Sally, and that's some of the stuff that I'll do, is understand the impacts on that, right? It's a great idea, it's a great solution, but it also creates other issues. So we have to tackle both of those simultaneously.
Let's thank Bill Tucker and Charlottesville Settlement Company and Pearl Certification for being a part of the show.
Well, I just love Bill Tucker to death. I was on the phone
Same
with
here.
I was on the phone with him yesterday, and I won't say where, but he was in some place warm, looking at a
In
nice,
Birkenstocks.
in Birken. Well, I can't remember the name of it, but it's straight up 1969 hippie sandals. I can't remember the name of it.
The Jesus sandals.
Well, there you go. He called me, at 9 o'clock at night to help resolve a closing we're going to do tomorrow. It's going to be Monday. So I can't thank him enough and give him a call. And Pearl, we just put a contract on a house yesterday that was Pearl certified platinum, and it made the difference in the deal.
We're going to thank Amanda Spagoni for being a part of the show. She says, phenomenal discussion. I'm enjoying listening to all of you. Ann Burrows has positive commentary. She says, great discussion. Such a complex problem, and you all are doing a great job bringing some light to it. Thank you for explaining it so well. A lot of folks watching right now. Show's yours. Anywhere you want to go on this topic here, Quinn?
I'm going to go back to the association. Me personally, I don't wield a whole lot of power in changing these issues. It's only when we come together as a group. And if I were to encourage involvement, decisions get made by people that show up. And you have to find your group where you fit. For us as realtors, that is our Realtor Association. A lot of our affiliates that work with us that want to be involved as well. This is the place where we can make a voice be heard, where we have enough clout to actually sit down with legislators in Richmond, which I think is happening later this month. Neil would know for sure if he's still listening.
Oh, I just signed up for it.
You just signed up for it? Yeah. Because I think a lot of forces have to come together to help fix this problem. I don't want to fix this problem at the expense of the person that's lived in their house in Belmont for 30 years. I want to have it both. I want everything, and that's going to require some legislative push to have that happen, and I don't think it's impossible. It's not simple, but I don't believe it's impossible.
To play off of that a little bit, I'd agree with my dear friend here to my left. We had Heather Hill on. That was probably, except for this show, of course.
Yeah, one of the best ever.
One of the best ever we did. And
I appreciated her straightforwardness.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And to play off of what Quinton just said, we got to not do this, right?
That gets you nowhere.
It gets you absolutely nowhere. Yeah. We need to sit down and together as a team and talk. So we will, in the show over the next course of the several months, start bringing other city council members, other elected officials on the jurisdictions, and I'm working on trying to get some of the state level folks in here, maybe with one sitting in one seat and then one of our real estate friends sitting in the other seat.
Good idea.
To have, what can we do to collectively make this better? Because it's in everybody's best interest to do that. This is not a singular, to quote my dear friend Robert Liberty out in Portland. Yeah, you're going to do it.
The silver buckshot?
The silver buckshot. Yeah. Right.
We spent a lot of time together.
We spend way too much time together. When we start finishing each other's sentences, we're going to have to talk about that.
It's a good little metaphor.
Yeah. So everybody says the silver bullet fixes something. So what we've coined is the silver buckshot, right? So this missing middle conversation, this I won't use it, but the RAP solution, or it's maybe one or two pellets in it, but there's tons of other pellets within that shotgun that needs to go to fix this, and bringing people together and having an open and honest discussion. And I'll tell you, for like a solid week after that chat with Heather, I was just on cloud nine. That was a really excellent conversation.
Some comments coming in. This is from your brother-in-law.
Oh.
It's interesting how you can get from any 2 points in the Richmond metro area in about 25 minutes or less. Well, however, in Charlottesville in the metro area, which is 20% the size of Richmond, a 25-mile commute to the city center drastically impacts commute costs, housing costs, job opportunities. Charlottesville is almost like an urban island. I love that. James
is smart.
He's
guy.
in the game.
He's in the game. He has a urban planning master's degree from UVA, and he runs around the country helping folks with this this topic, and we'll get him on the show one day. He's a pretty awesome dude.
Tim Smith works at S&P. He says, Jerry, I enjoy the show and try to follow it regularly. You guys talk about the missing middle. I am a millennial myself. Maybe the answer is Waynesboro and Fluvanna County for us.
It is, and that's where the actual market is going, right? I mean, to play off of Tom's comments a little bit, that the market is going to seek these areas. But again, now we have this transportation issue. I live in Fluvanna County. Sometimes 53 is a bit crowded. But again, as long as everybody's at the table and honest and open about these struggles, we'll get there. I believe that in my heart and soul.
And I think Waynesboro and Fluvanna are a couple of the bucks in the buckshop.
Sure.
There are one or two of those, but
You're allowed to steal that, by the way.
Couple of pellets, huh?
I try to stick with metaphors. There are a couple of the pellets.
Yeah.
But it's not a whole solution. I don't think any one thing will be a whole solution.
So like we said early on a cup of coffee, an hour flies by awfully fast.
Yeah.
Goes very quickly.
57
Amazing
minutes
stuff.
in.
Yeah.
But I kind of turned this upside down. I do kind of want to have a little fun.
We're going to do the gauntlet? All right.
Can we do it?
So running the gauntlet, the first thing that comes to mind when we ask a question to you, no thinking. Pretty much the opposite of what we do in business and in life. You cannot think about what you are saying.
Don't be sure
right
it's
now.
always the opposite.
And this is a challenge because my dear friend Quinton has been through this before. So
Right.
I got to
and
be.
he killed it. You guys are both going to do well.
So I'm the fresh meat here, is that
Yeah,
it?
you are the fresh meat. You get to go first.
You get to
Okay.
go first.
Oh,
Lucky
boy.
you.
Yeah.
So, best piece of advice you've ever been given and why? Got to come a little quicker than that, Tom.
Yeah, I do. Be honest.
There you go.
From a dad.
There you go.
Don't lie.
There you go. I've asked you this question before, but what's
Oh
yours?
gosh, there's so many things that I need to pay better attention to in terms of advice. The best piece of advice for my personality type lately is to seek first to understand
Oh, good for you.
and not just react. Ask more questions.
That's good.
You're up.
That's good. Favorite restaurant in the area and why?
Oh, that's probably Barbecue Exchange
That's a good
because
one.
I live within 2 miles of it,
Oh.
and it's just too easy to
shut
go
up.
over there and enjoy it.
I don't want to hear this.
Craig Hartman and his outfit, the top tax driver in Gordonsville.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And now the number
Yes.
one employer with PBM now not in the market. Interesting,
It is.
right?
It is,
He's
yeah.
built a behemoth
Oh,
over
yeah.
there.
Yeah. That, he started the restaurant and then went into catering. He's done really well. I mean, I had sampled, what was it, Clifton Country Inn where he started?
Oh, yeah.
Some years ago, and just
The
was
Clifton
just
Inn.
Clifton
Yeah.
Inn, yeah.
Yeah.
And was just amazed that it's this guy who works up at this level. He's doing barbecue.
Fine dining to barbecue.
I was in the line one time, and there was a lady next to me. I just asked her, I said, where are you from? She says, Northern Virginia. I said, and you come all the way down here to get this? She says, I'm actually on my way to visit some friends in North Carolina, and I always stop here and we get a pound of this and a pound of that, and she had a big stack.
I know people from New York that just make the trip down there to do that.
They catered
Yeah.
our wedding. We loved
Yeah.
it so much.
Yeah.
Literally, catered
Wow.
our wedding.
Now, that's barbecue.
Yeah, catered our
Yeah.
wedding. Yours. I know you like to eat. I know you like to drink, right?
Yeah, there's several places that come to mind, but the one that I have to say is Mangioni's on Main, owned by very good friends of mine. Recently flipped over and expanding a menu, and we held a Christmas party there. They treated us very well.
That's fabulous.
They've expanded the bar selection, which makes me happy,
Me too.
and really great ownership, really good staff.
Well, I'm half Italian and half Irish, and the Italian side of me loves that place.
Right, we appreciate that.
So, what talent or skill that you don't currently possess, this is for Tom, that you don't currently possess that you wish you had?
I wish I could sight read at the piano.
Ooh.
I'm going to let Quinton answer
Wow,
that
that was
question.
fast.
But I'm going to.
Yeah.
You didn't even give me a chance
There's
to
a
think
backstory to that, but we're not going to touch on that today. You're on.
That's a good question.
As I get older, just the ability to stay focused. I feel like I spend 5 minutes on a topic and I'm tired of it and I move on to the next one.
But a skill, something that I guess that could be considered a skill. It's funny, in researching that question over the last couple of weeks, almost 90% of the people said what Tom said. I want to learn some sort of musical, and that would be mine, right? I
Yeah.
love to listen to music. I enjoy music. I wish I could get behind a piano or any type of musical instrument and play it. But it's funny, almost close to 100% of folks
Really? Yeah.
answer with that.
Your favorite brewery or winery in Charlottesville or Albemarle County and why? Or Central Virginia?
Or Central Virginia. I like South Street.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
You
I'm
like
going.
the Satan's Pony?
Oh, I love Satan's Pony. I'm
Yeah.
going to a
That's a
book
good one.
discussion group tonight, and I always bring the beer.
Nice.
Well, recently I've been bringing the beer, and always take Satan's Pony.
That's a good
You
one.
actually
Yeah.
read, right?
Huh?
You actually read, right?
Oh, yes, I do.
Well, he's the CAAR president. I can't wait to hear yours here.
Well, it has to be the bar behind Tavola Sacchetti because they serve real drinks and not just wine and beer.
That's a good
Oh
one.
man, I tell you what, it's
Yeah.
hard not to walk out of there with an awesome drink.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, they have some great folks in there.
Good call on that.
Yeah.
one.
And
we're-
also, I'm going to give a plug here because you mentioned beer. I'm going to say go a little bit north or sideways of that. Silverback Distillery.
Yeah.
I fell in love with their honey rye and got to know the owners of the place. And of course, we all know where Denver Riggleman is now. But I just like the fact that a lot of this, whether it's beer, wine, or spirits, we've got craft industries in Central Virginia.
Amen.
I remember working the Montpelier Wine Festival years ago when Orange Chamber of Commerce operated that. And it's just every time I go in the store, if I'm looking for wine or beer, I want something that was done within the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Well, I'm a gin guy, so
Okay.
that was a good Silverback's
You
a
like
good,
that?
good choice.
Yeah.
Wrap up?
Yeah.
So one wrap-up question. This is, and we may have already
I
asked.
think you asked Quentin this, but
I've
let's see.
Quentin this. We'll
Let's
see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with Quentin first on this one. So you find yourself on a stranded island. Don't
start
ask
with
how
Tom
you
on
got
this
there.
one.
I should
No
start
boy.
with Tom?
You should start with Tom.
Okay.
Yeah. In case Quentin's already heard it.
I will start with Thomas. I
I
apologize.
still got the Kevlar on.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So you're on a stranded island,
Okay.
right? You're only allowed to bring one book with you. What would that book be?
Lord of the Rings,
Okay.
because I've read it 10 times, and I'm still fascinated by it.
Quentin?
You're going to laugh. It's The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. I started reading it when I was in high school. And he does such a good job of reporting all of the intrigue and the nuances that led us through the war. And different things stick out at me every time I've read it.
So, gentlemen, this was a bit of a trick question.
It was a trick question.
Right.
Okay.
Right. A survival manual was the answer I was looking for. In my
That's from
case,
the Marine.
In my case, it would be United States Marine Corps survival manual.
Survival
but-
manual, yeah.
I was born in a bad part of Los Angeles. I'm good.
I'm
Yeah.
good. I was born in not such a good part of Brooklyn when Brooklyn was Brooklyn, so I get that.
Yeah.
Gentlemen,
Great show.
great show.
Yeah.
This meant the world to me. Thank you very much, and have yourself a great 2020. And I can't wait to be sitting on the other end of a board table when you two guys are running the show. So thank you very much for all your service and
Thank you,
all the
Keith.
energy you
Yeah.
guys put into it. And to
Thank you for
helping
having
all.
us.
Absolutely. Guys, this is Real Talk powered by the Yes team of Roy Wheeler Realty Company. We'll take today's show and we'll archive it on ilovecville.com. We will syndicate it for 30 days on 17 Facebook pages, 17 Twitter accounts, the third largest Instagram in Central Virginia, a daily e-newsletter that goes out to 118,000 plus inboxes every morning at 11 a.m. And of course, turn it into a podcast on iTunes. Real Talk, Friday mornings from 10:15 to about 11:20.
So hold it.
Depending.
I got to wrap up in this. You spend a little bit too much time in New York.
Everybody
Maybe.
thinks I'm a New Yorker. I'm married to a New Yorker. I talk with my hands. I talk fast.
Oh God. Yeah.
You get it.
I do get it.
That's why we get
I
along.
have to hold my hands like this very carefully.
You know why we always go along here?
I
It's
know.
because I enjoy the content and it's compelling.
Yeah, well, I enjoy our conversation.
Same. You guys have a good weekend. Keep it local, keep it safe, keep it local. Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Always.
Great work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Jerry, that was amazing.
Yeah, great work.
I love it.
Seriously,
Thanks.
You did great. It was a lot of fun. Very knowledgeable.